Silverstone Books presents the world's first audio manga, Harmonics, Rise of the Magician. Written by Collin, Earl, and Snelgrove. Music by The Epilogues. Hear more great tracks at theepilogues.com. Can't wait week to week for your fix? Harmonics is also available as an ebook, and the paperback edition is chock full of extra chapters, exclusive content, and the entire first episode of Season 2. Visit collinearl.com to get it and to find news, updates, and more insane stories.
Crossing synapses, confusing all I know.
The Project. Time: 5 years, 14 days after the desert facility was destroyed. Scene: boardroom of MESA Labs. In our top story tonight, a ranking member of the UON Science and Technology Advancement Committee was brutally murdered at his secure apartment home. While authorities are being tight-lipped about the murder, inside sources spoke with us on the condition of anonymity about the event. Mark Brown has more. A gruesome scene unfolded last night in the apartment home of Dr. Yuan Shu, a member of the United Organization of Nations Science and Technology Advancement Committee. Dr. Shu was best known for leading cutting-edge research on human-computer interfaces over the last 10 years. At his new post in the UON, he was in charge of approving funding for various companies around the collective that sought to improve the standard of living by inducing much-needed advancements in healthcare, agriculture, and education. All that work ended here in a bloodbath late last night. Sources inside the UON investigation confirmed that Dr. Shu was at his apartment under guard due to recent threats made against him. Before we were escorted off premises, we were able to obtain the still of Dr. Shu's apartment. As you can see, the doorframe was split in two by what looks like an earthquake of some sort. But my source tells me that investigators found no evidence of any other part of the apartment building being affected. Nor were there any geological events last night. Further, sources indicate that Dr. Shu's personal guard was found just inside the door. Initial reports show that this guard appeared to be killed as a result of head trauma caused by the shifting floor. Any additional details about Dr. Shu's death are sketchy at best. It seems there are a number of unanswered questions, the most pressing being how an assassin gained entry into this high-security residence building, took out a personal guard, and accessed the secured apartment without the use of explosives, rigging, or heavy equipment. Now, my source tells me that investigators have not ruled out some sort of portable mechanical device to jack the underlying floor, but upon inspection of the floor below, no evidence of that has been found. The UON is holding a press conference later today, and we will bring you any further details. Thanks, Mark. With so many unknown questions surrounding this high-profile death, do the authorities have any leads on the assailant? Tom, from what I can gather, investigators are searching for details that will help them find the person or persons responsible. But I will say that as we have been reporting from this location, we have heard a number of whispered conversations among investigators and other news agencies about another possible strike by the famed magician. However, we have not heard anything official confirming that. Well, thanks again, Mark. Keep it tuned to this feed. We'll bring you updates as this story progresses. Now a look at the markets. In heavy trading this morning.
Turn it off. I think we have heard enough,
said an old man at the head of the mahogany boardroom table. The holographic image of the news feed faded out to reveal the company logo slowly spinning above the table. Men in dark suits lined its one side and sat opposite a line of lab rats, all in white coats. Monitors with floating heads hung just behind the seated bodies as others joined the meeting from remote locations.
This recording of the incident 2 weeks ago marks the latest use of the Lost Project,
the old man said in a low voice.
The media can speculate all they want. Our plants inside the UON have confirmed the modification of the floor structure of the apartment. No explosives, no mechanical devices. Preliminary vids taken right after the incident show that the floor was simply modded to jut up 3 feet in that isolated location. Warwick, load the feed.
A younger man tapped some commands on his tablet, and the spinning logo faded to a display of charts and graphs. Warwick cleared his throat. As you can see, the spectral analysis of the floor shows a slight increase in residual energy. I believe that— Slight is the key word here, interrupted a white coat at the other end of the table. Your residual energy blip is less than the fluctuation in the calibration sequence. Before you go sending us on another covert op to chase down yet another dead end, don't you think we should have some more proof that this is a result of the missing project? Warwick looked unfazed. Doctor, I appreciate your healthy skepticism regarding the retrieval of an asset your department lost. I'm sure we all understand how your past attempts to recover the long-lost project have jaded you and perhaps dampened your hopes in recovering it. But, and I mean this in the kindest of ways, shut up. I will not shut up, you sniveling little punk. I was splitting atoms when you were still setting fire to your hair with your home chemistry set. As I have voiced many times before, I know my project. I know what it is capable of. I have the test results just prior to, well, the most recent data we have. There is just no way it is capable of this type of complex modification. Doctor, your test results are 5 years old. As we have discussed previously, we are in the dark as to what its capabilities would be if left unmonitored, or worse, found and further developed. This spectral evidence confirms that molecular modification has occurred. Warwick enlarged the graph to show the small blip in the otherwise flat line. Do you even understand what you're talking about? The doctor blurted out. Who would even have the resources to further develop the project? In the past, we have seen copious amounts of residual energy being left to the scenes of these so-called assassinations. First responders have even filed reports of the trees and earth around the modifications being warm when the ambient temperature is quite cool. What you are inferring, Warwick, is that whoever is using the prototype has somehow learned from our attempts to track its use and has started to police its brass, so to speak, by cleverly dissipating the residual energy that ensues after structure modification. Do you have any idea how asinine a theory that is? We are talking about a technology that, when we last saw it used, was barely able to bend a toothpick. And that feat was accomplished after months of intense work. And yet, its use has graduated from bending toothpicks to high-tech assassinations. Oh, and let us not forget these images from the night when you lost the project. The charts faded into holographic images of skewered guards and charred hallways of what looked like a research facility. This seemed to put a damper on the doctor's protest. Warwick continued. Besides, our recovery team was first on scene and confirmed the use of the prototype. Our local agents have made the needed arrangements with the UON investigation and with the local Leos. Standing gag orders have also been issued to those who have advanced knowledge of this situation. The old man stood from his chair and walked to the full-length tinted window of the conference room. He stood staring out for a few minutes before he spoke. Gentlemen, while we will pursue this development in recovering our property, we must press forward with our efforts. Kingston has a report on the good professor that I believe all of you should hear. Warwick passed the tablet to a man in an expensive-looking black suit. The man tapped out a few commands, and the bust of a middle-aged man began to rotate at the center of the table. As most of you know, Dr. Eli Thurman has been a part of our efforts here for quite some time now, although the good doctor doesn't really know that. It was Thurman's early work into M-theory and resonant frequencies that led us to borrow his research, which eventually led to the Interface Lab. We have been keeping tabs on Thurman and his work for a number of years, but the rebuilt Interface Lab has recently indicated that it may be time to acquire Thurman as an official asset to MESA. Developments in user acceptance testing have suggested that success may be just around the corner. Kingston changed the holographic image to a vid of Dr. Thurman in a lecture hall. Currently, Thurman heads a university research lab that has limited resources. We at the company have obviously progressed far beyond their work. However, the Interface Lab has yet to produce a working model as advanced as the project is. Seeing the rising cost associated with the increased quantity of coding needed, it has been suggested that we start our efforts to bring the doctor on board.
I understand that most of you share my concern about the doctor finding out how he used his research for the advancement of our goals,
said the old man, still staring out the window.
Kingston and the head of the interface lab have begun to develop a plan that will give us access to Thurman and keep him at a safe distance from the more sensitive efforts that are currently being undertaken. Yes, confirmed Kingston. The head of the interface lab has been working on this acquisition for a number of years now. It is his opinion that when Thurman comes on board, we could be looking at building another prototype on par with the perceived current specs of the Lost Project. Kingston glanced at the white coat at the end of the table. In a minimum of 12 months. And what developments has the lab made, and why do we even need Thurman if we've progressed so far beyond his current research? Asked a nameless man in the middle of the line of suits. Well, short of giving you the entire briefing, replied Kingston with a smirk. The head of the interface lab has reported they have run into a challenge with current prototypes accepting the coding. However, this latest iteration has shown slightly less adverse declines in performance after the coding trials, but is still hampered by its side effects. While the lab has mitigated these with the advanced UI that they have developed, this is only a temporary solution. The head of the lab believes that Thurman will be able to fill in the gaps to make the interface seamless. Do you really think Thurman has the ability to advance us further than what we've been able to accomplish? Asked the nameless man. The old man turned from the window. Eli Thurman is the reason this company has been so successful in our interface pursuits. Eli Thurman combined the needed theories to produce the science that allowed us to build the prototype. Eli Thurman is unmatched in his understanding of quantum dynamics and Tesla's works. Aside from his moral objections to some of the things we do around here, Eli Thurman could advance this company into the next century with the knowledge he possesses. The old man walked over and sat in his chair. With the combined talents of the head of the interface lab and Thurman on board, we would finally be able to change the recovery of the project into the termination of the project, and eliminate those who perpetuated its theft. We would be able to produce what we have been trying to craft for almost the last decade. So, in answer to your question, yes, we believe that Thurman has that ability. Gentlemen, I believe that will be all for today. Please file your reports with your respective division heads. The floating heads faded into spinning logos as the men around the table stood and started to exit the room. Kingston docked the tablet, listened as the old man whispered something to him, and left the room as well. A trip down the elevator, 4 biometrically sealed doors, and 3 guard posts later, Kingston stepped into the office of the head of the interface lab. The old man wants to come down and see the latest prototype, said Kingston softly. The man behind the desk glanced up slowly to look at Kingston. Is it online? Asked Kingston. Without replying, the man stood from his desk, walked past Kingston, and continued down a separate hallway. The 2 men walked in silence as they passed door after door. At the end of the hall, they came to another biometrically sealed door. The man stooped to scan his eye and then waved his hand across the screen. A moment later, the viewing port slid to one side. The man indicated for Kingston to look for himself. Kingston stepped up to the small window and peered into the almost pitch-black room. Seconds later, as his eyes strained to see the contents of the room, a dark outline anchored to a table slowly came into focus.
Harmonics, Rise of the Magician. Written by Collin, Earl, and Chris Snelgrove. Music by The Epilogues. Hear more great tracks, get concert dates, and buy Epilogues gear at theepilogues.com. Don't want to wait until the end? Be sure to check out CollinEarl.com for the ebook and paperback editions of Harmonics, packed with extra chapters, exclusive content, and the entire first episode of Season 2.
We hope you're enjoying this free serialized audiobook. If you like what you're hearing, please tell a friend. Better yet, tell a friend and leave a contribution for the book at podiobooks.com. At least 75% of your donation will go straight to the author or producer, so please, be generous. And thanks for listening.